Robbie here from Arsenal Fan TV here with an Arsenal legend, John Hartson. And you know what, John? I was just thinking to myself when I was coming for this interview. Raheem Sterling, I was watching him last night, most expensive youngster, 49 million. But you was like the equivalent back in the day, weren't you? You was most expensive.
Yeah, well, I was Britain's most expensive teenager in the history of football at that particular time. And I also equalled the Arsenal transfer record that they paid for Ian Wright from Crystal Palace. So when you think Mesut Ozil, a couple of years ago, came in for, 40-something million. Back in 95, 20 years ago, that was myself. I was Arsenal's record.
So he was like the Mesut Ozil of the day.
Oh, yeah. I didn't quite have the same feet as him. I didn't have quite quick feet like him. But no, as I said, it was a great move, Arsenal. You know, I'd gone from Luton, where I'd sort of burst onto the scene as a 17, 18-year-old. And there was a couple of clubs interested. I think Liverpool at the time, Arsenal, of course. There was one or two other big London clubs. And David Pleat, the manager of Luton, I think he was very friendly with George Graham. And I think the two clubs did the deal. A lot of money at the time for just a 19-year-old. And, you know, there was never in doubt for me when I knew Arsenal were in for me.
And talk about, you know, as I'm making that comparison with Raheem Sterling, the pressure, people be talking about the pressure that's on him with that big price tag over his head. That would have been the same pressure, equivalent, back in the day, that would have been on your head. Going to a massive club like Arsenal.
Absolutely.
You're playing with guys like Ian Wright.
Yeah.
What was the pressure like?
I mean, it's a lot of pressure, but it happened to me 3 times. You know, it happened to me at Arsenal, then at West Ham, then at Wimbledon. So I'm 23 years of age. I broke the record at Arsenal, West Ham, Wimbledon. So for a young boy from Swansea, from a council estate, that is a lot of pressure. Having to perform, you know, being called what a waste of money by the fans. You know, you're the brunt of all the fans' songs unless you're banging in goals all the time. You know, some players can glide through a career, never get any abuse off the crowd, never get any stick, never get any chance. But when you're record signing on your back page, you know, most weeks, then it's pressure, you know. And as I said, I was very, very young, you know.
I had to cope with that. You know, I'm
trying to cope.
You know, you're going into a team with Ian Wright, Dennis Bergkamp. You're a youngster. Yeah. Massive price tag over your head.
But to be fair, they were fantastic. Wright, he was brilliant. You know, took me under his wing, if you like. And he would work with me in training. And I always felt I've got to step up a level, because when I'm playing with Wrighty, I've got to go and win my headers. You know, like Smudger had done, Alan Smith. And George signed me because he loved Alan. Alan Smith won the Golden Boot twice. Great centre forward, Alan Smith. You know, scored a great goal in that night. Made one goal, scored another goal at Anfield. Was it 89? Where they came back.
Yes, of course.
Won the title, and Mickey Thomas getting a late goal.
Fantastic.
What an evening for Arsenal that was. Won the game 2-0. Had to win 2-0, any other result, you know. And Smudger probably reminded George, myself, if I could get anywhere near Alan, that was the way George liked to play, you know. Yeah. So he came in for me, spent a lot of money. And the likes of Merson, who lived in St Albans, I lived in Bricket Wood, in Watford there. Merce would put the... it was a great era as well of heavyweight boxing. It was when Holyfield was fighting Tyson, and when Lewis was fighting Holyfield and Tyson.
Proper boxing.
It was a wonderful era of heavyweight. And they'd come on at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, wouldn't it? And Paul Merson would invite me and my wife around the house. Steve Bold would be there. Nigel Winterburn would be there. 2 sort of Hertfordshire guys like myself. And the wives, and we'd get like 30, 40 quid's worth of Chinese, few beers. And Merce was a great host, you know, and his previous wife, Lorraine. So I'd spent, they'd all sort of got me into the group like that, if you like. So they helped me settle. And on the football field, I was doing well as well. You know, I was in the side under George, and then Bruce Rioch took over. Not the best spell under Bruce, but we'd reached the Cup Winners' Cup final.
Talk me through it. What happened? I mean, you scored the equaliser.
That's right.
It was all looking good. It looked like we're going to come back in, and then I can't even mention his name now.
I know,
Right,
I know.
it hurts that final.
I know.
Um,
Well, the thing was, I'd scored a penalty in the in our semi-final against Sampdoria, where we beat them 3-2 at Highbury, and we lost 3-2 in Genoa. And Sven-Goran Eriksson was the manager. Roberto Mancini played up front, and Lombardo was playing for them. So he had a very good side
very
at the
good
time.
team.
They came to Highbury in the semi-final, and we beat them 3-2. Then we went to Genoa, and we lost 3-2. Went to penalties, and I was one of the 5 penalty takers, and I slotted my penalty in the bottom left-hand corner, and we beat them on pens, and we went through to the final, faced Real Zaragoza, and then it was the last minute of extra time, second half extra time. Merce had gone off with cramp. Ray Parlour had gone off. I think our skipper, something happened to Tony Adams, a clash ahead on Martin Keown, I think it was, crashed his head. So 2 or 3 of the penalty takers were already off. So I'm thinking, it's going to penalties. The game is like dying a death, and I'm only on to take a penalty. It's going to be penalty kicks. It's the last kick of the second half of extra time, and then the ball fell to your mate, Naeem, and then he's just hit this ball, and David Seaman's trying to go at that.
I don't even like being reminded of it.
He would just normally just catch up with one hand if he was in training. But I think the pressure, the moment, 55,000 people at the Parc de France, and I'd got us back in it with my equaliser. So I'm 19 years old, and I could always tell my grandkids that, I scored in a European final at 19, which was great for me personally. But irrespective of that, we lost the game, and I was disappointed. I wasn't thinking of that after the game, of course. But great moments, playing in a cup final at 19. I'd only been at the club about 6 months.
Playing for George Graham, what was it like playing under him? I mean, he was a winner. He so successful for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Again, as a youngster, what was it like? And also having to fill those boots of Alan Smith. What was it like for you?
George was great from the word go. I think he realised that maybe it was a case of it was a sign-in long-term for me. It was about my development. I was 19. I was quite raw. But George got the sack after 4 games. So I never quite got to play under George. He spent all that money on me. He put his arm around me. We played the Super Cup final twice, AC Milan. At Highbury, Paul Merson's first game back. Then we went to the San Siro. Played in some big games under George. But then, allegedly, he got the sack for taking that bung, of course. And then Stuart Houston took over. So I never really got the chance to work under George Graham. He tried to sign me again at Tottenham 3 or 4 years later, which I failed a medical on my knee.
Glad you did that, by the way.
So I never got the chance to work with George again. But no, a great man, a disciplinarian. The players loved him. The players were in fear of him. But a good fear. They wanted to play for him. He trusted them, but very disciplined. Didn't put up with any, because he dealt with it. Tony Adams came out publicly and admitted he was an alcoholic. He helped Paul Merson with all his problems. And it wasn't just them two. A lot of the guys enjoyed a drink. A lot of the guys enjoyed a liquid lunch, as they called it. But he dealt with all that issue. And then Arsene Wenger then eventually took over. He took it on again another level.
And Arsene Wenger came in. Again, you didn't get to play for him long enough before you moved on to West Ham. But what was Arsene Wenger like?
Wenger was different class. I'd never heard the man swear. I've never heard him raise his voice. An absolute gentleman. Treated the players with enormous respect. His training was really, really good. Everything was with a watch. He'd write it down on a clipboard at the start of the training session. 15-minute warm-up, 10 minutes passing drill, 5-minute game, shooting, 35 minutes, over. He would have a structure, and he brought that structure. All the food changed, from steak and chips or liquid lunch. It was boiled chicken, it was rice, it was beans, it was jacket potatoes. It was all...
Did you think of yourself? Did you think of what's going on here?
Well, I'd have the lunch, then I'd go down the pub for a steak afternoon. But no, he changed everything, did Arsene Wenger. And then Arsene Wenger actually wanted me to stay at the football club. He wanted me to learn off Wright and Bergkamp. But I wanted to play. I wanted to play. I thought I was good enough to play. I was very confident, and he pleaded with me to stay. He said, "You can learn from the guy." I had 3 years on my contract, and I left for West Ham in '97. And ironically enough, Arsenal went on to produce the double in '98. And he brought in some great signings. I think he paid 500 grand for Nicolas Anelka, sold him for 22 million. The likes of Overmars, Petit, Vieira, Patrick was there when I was there, signed him for £4 million from AC Milan. He went on to become a great player.
Any regrets for that, John, that you left too early? That, you know, you see that team, you know, going on and winning so many things. And
well, with hindsight, you know, anybody watching this would say, do you know what, why didn't you just, you know, get your head down, listen to Wenger, try and get in the team. But I had Harry Redknapp, the West Ham manager, on the phone, desperate for their lives. You know, they were in a relegation battle and they looked dead and buried. They were almost gone, West Ham. They needed something like 14 points in the last 7, 8, 9, 10 games, whatever it was. And Harry said to me, look, you know, I'll give you games. You'll play every single week. I'm bringing in some players. You know, come and join me, blah, blah, blah. And he's quite persuasive, Harry, when he wants something on the phone. You know, the agents are working. And I left Arsenal and I joined West Ham. And I have to say, I couldn't stop scoring goals at West Ham. You know, that year when he signed me and Paul Kitson, we formed a great partnership, which kept us up. The second season, I scored 24 goals for West Ham, which was my biggest in the Premier League. I'd got nowhere near that at Arsenal. And then the third season, I left West Ham. But I wouldn't say it's a regret, but I think maybe if I'd been a little bit wiser and maybe not had been 20, 21, if I'd have been 27 or 28, you know, a little bit more mature, maybe I would have stayed. But it's certainly not a regret because I had a wonderful couple of seasons at West Ham. I worked with Harry Redknapp, who remains a friend to this day. But with hindsight, I'd be sitting now, I'd have my doubles winners medals. I could have said I partnered Henri, I partnered Anelka, I played with Petit, you know, Overmars. But I went on to play with some fine players anyway, so I wouldn't say it's a regret, no.
Now, I heard you the other day on the radio giving a passionate defence of Arsene Wenger. You know, a lot of fans were very upset that he hadn't signed anybody apart from Petr Cech in the transfer window. And I listened to your interview, and you was kind of the first person I heard sort of coming out and defending Arsene Wenger and saying that, listen, he knows what he's doing. You've got faith in what he's doing. I mean, do you think he was right not to sign a striker in that transfer window?
Well, how do we know he didn't try? We don't know. We don't know what goes on at a football club. He could have gone in for Benzema. He could have gone in for Lewandowski, whose wages are astronomical. Now, we know Arsene has a policy. He won't pay a player twice as much as what he's paying his top player, which is probably Sanchez. He won't break the structure. All right? He protects Arsenal's money. I think, yes, he should have brought a defender, right? But not just a defender like 16 million for Chambers that he paid for at Southampton. Why do that? Chambers done the nightmare. Don't look anywhere near it. I saw him play last season at Swansea at right back against Montero. I don't think he played for 4 months.
He had a poor game then. Very poor.
I'm not sure whether, you know, he's tried him at right back. He's tried him at centre half. Now, what my point I'm trying to make is, there's no point just bringing in players just to add numbers. If you're going to bring in a quality player, he's got to go straight into your first team. He's got to be better than what you've got. Why just bring players in just to have a bigger squad if you're not up to... So he may well have gone for the likes of, let's just say, a centre-back, a Ramos. But they priced out the window in terms of what wages. He will not break the bank. And he's got a reason for doing that because, you know, he doesn't want to break the wage structure. He doesn't want to bring average players in. He could have gone in for Lewandowski. You know, he could have gone in for other great midfield players. For all we know, we don't know. I think the one position I think maybe they needed was that defensive midfield player. Now, I can't understand why he never went for a Schneiderlin, the French defensive midfielder at Southampton, or went to Chelsea. I think he would have been a great signing. But he believes in Coquelin. He believes in Coquelin. He's called Coquelin a £40 million player before now. And Coquelin's actually playing very, very well.
Do you think that's good because you know, obviously as an ex-player, is that great as a player when your manager's got a lot of faith in the players that are there?
Players also want to see top players come into the club. But if they're not out there, and if they're being priced out of the market, then he ain't going to sign them. He ain't going to sign them. You know, that's the bottom line. And I just think, why go and waste money? Why go and... People can argue, well, break the wage structure. That's not his philosophy. That's not what he does. They all fit into, you know. And he obviously clearly feels that he's got enough to finish top four again. That is frustrating because a lot of the fans, they believe the money's there. They want him to go and splash the cash, bring in the likes of these Sterlings and these De Bruynes who's on 350 grand a week. Arsenal don't work like that. I'm sorry. They don't do it. Until they sack Wenger and bring in another manager, right, who is willing to waste money, to spend money on seriously top players, which is always a gamble, right? I'll take it back, not so much waste money, but bring in them players and speak to the board and break wage structures, then while you've got Arsene Wenger, he doesn't work like that. So I could totally see where he was coming from in not spending. Because there's no doubt he would have gone in for big players. No doubt Arsenal would have asked about these big players. But they don't come into the philosophy and the structure that Arsenal likes to work with.
That's
so there's an argument for some supporters to say, go and spend the money. It's there, Arsenal. For goodness
we like to say spend.
Well, there you go. Yeah, go and spend it. And then there's the business side of it, which was the side that I've taken, to why waste money on average players?
It's great to see you at the moment. You know, we all remember that. I remember being stunned when I heard that you was ill, and you know the battle that you've had, and then just to see you at the moment, you're vibrant, you're full of life. You're doing all these things on as I said, on the radio. It's brilliant. I mean, well, you're an inspiration at the moment. That's going beyond football.
Thank you very much. Kind words. I appreciate them words, but. What I would say is as well, I've been extremely lucky, you know, and I think you need that little bit of luck going through life. And I made the most of my talent as a footballer. I was never a great player. I was never a Gerrard or a Rooney or one of these, you know, Bergkamps. I never go down as one of them. But I was somebody that gave his all, and I scored goals, you know, and I worked hard at my game, and I've always remained humble, you know, through everything I've achieved and everything else. But with the cancer, it's something that I'm eternally grateful to have come through. And I do appreciate there's a lot of people out there that don't quite win their battles. And it's absolutely destroying for the families, and young kids lose their dads, and young dads lose their kids, you know, with cancer, leukemia, and different illnesses.
Does it put a real, you know, when you see, like, going back again to football, and you see all the money being, like you said, the money being splashed around and all, you know, does, like, you know, what happened to you really put a perspective on life?
It you know what? It's changed my perception of life, you know, having come through what I went through. I've got that second opportunity now to watch my kids growing up. And I've had everything I ever wanted. I've lived a very comfortable, nice life, you know, but now I live a normal life. You know, I appreciate time with my children and my family. You know, but when I was playing, I never really particularly give thought to any cancer, not in a bad way, but unless it's hit you, unless you've been through it and you've been a sufferer, then it doesn't have the same effect. I know everything about cancer now, and I've set up a charity that I give something back. But when you're a footballer in the midst of your career, and you've got the crowd, and you've got your family, and you've got all your aspects of the game that you have to do, everything else. You can't blame these players for not really raising money and going to cancer charities and things, because a lot of them are unaware, and I was very much unaware. It's only when I was struck down myself, you know, that's when my perception of life has changed. But prior to that, you know, I was always a humble guy, but prior to that, I wasn't aware that all this was going on around me until it hit me, sort of, you know, straight in the face, like a double-decker bus, really. Just hit me out of nowhere. You know, I was 33 years of age. I trained every day of my life for 20 years. And then bang, I'm in a hospital bed fighting for my life. So it was overnight, you know. So I'm very, very grateful and appreciative that I was able to come through that and still be here to tell a tale.
Well, listen, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. You're an inspiration.
Yeah,
Keep up all the great work on
Cheers.
on TV that you're doing, and hopefully Arsenal will spend a bit of that money. I want him to spend a bit.
Hopefully, you never know. Take
Thank you
care.
very much.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Nice one.
Okay, it's time to find out the results and therefore who's doing the challenge. Anyway, disappointing. Big letdown. Right, okay, let's have the results.
Yeah, let's have the results.
Yeah, cameraman's got the results.
In the interest of fairness, we Mondogoal have decided that all points should be awarded. As seasoned pros, the Redmen